Hi everyone, Florian Puhani here. Today I would like to share with you a few thoughts about a notion that's very unique to bodybuilding, the so-called mind-muscle connection. Full disclaimer, this has nothing to do with the visual content of this video. If you are more interested in my annual Odd Object Carry tradition, watch last year's video about it, I've linked it in the info card. As for the mind-muscle connection, let me begin with an allegory. An imaginary friend of mine is always bragging about the great connection he has with his teenage son. So one day I asked him, "How do you know and what is it like to have such a great connection?" And he told me, "Well, I drive my son to school, then I take him by his hand and lead him to his classroom, and then during class I sit beside him and make sure he pays attention and takes notes. And when school is finished for the day, I take him by his hand and lead him back to our car and drive him home again. Oh yeah, I also buckle and unbuckle his seatbelt, of course." At that point I interrupted him. "Hold on, is your son so severely disabled?" "No, he isn't, not at all. It's just that over the years we have established such a close connection." Okay, I think you get the point. Does that really sound like a great father-son connection to you? Of course not. Quite on the contrary, it's pathological and abusive. But the curious thing is, that's exactly how some bodybuilders think they should treat all of their muscles. Now you may argue, so what? Muscles are not teenagers. Well, I believe there are actually more similarities than you might think. I'll come to that later. For now, I just want to explain why muscles may not exactly be like teenagers, but come to think of it, they are even much less like babies or toddlers. When bodybuilders talk about the mind-muscle connection, they always mean the conscious mind involved in deliberate actions. But your muscles have been connected to the unconscious part of your CNS long before your consciousness even started developing. So, in a manner of speaking, your muscles are even older than you. If you means only that part of you that is self-aware, which, as neurology has proven, is only the tip of the iceberg, and the vast majority of you as a whole living being is working automatically. Also, from the very beginning, your muscles have been used to working together in certain patterns. If you had to address every muscle consciously on its own, you wouldn't even be able to get out of bed in the morning. Or let's say you walk on the pavement and text on your phone at the same time, which I don't recommend, by the way. And so you step in dog poop. I bet you didn't do that consciously. Or take someone who is paying attention to a suspenseful movie and meanwhile totally absent-mindedly eating a whole bucket of popcorn. People wondering where all their food had gone is so common it has even become a cliché. On the other hand, there are even more cases in which operating on automatic is useful or even necessary. In almost every sport, athletes train with the intent of disconnecting their conscious mind from their muscles and rather letting their movement patterns become automatic. They aim to develop reflexes and get into a flow state when performing their sport. That's because their muscles are just a means to an end. Aaron Rodgers doesn't think about his pectoralis major while he is throwing a touchdown pass. Harry Kane doesn't try to feel his quadriceps femoris when he is kicking a goal. I even dare say most athletes are quite content when they don't feel their muscles at all, because that means none of them is tired or injured. If you are a bodybuilder, however, your muscles are the be-all and end-all, which means that sometimes it really can be useful to consciously feel and contract a single muscle on its own, which to my understanding is the definition of the mind-muscle connection. In some cases, however, the targeted muscle doesn't know what to think of that, in a manner of speaking. I have another allegory for that. Imagine a teacher who for years had never assigned regular homework but only team projects, and he cared for nothing but the quality of the finished project. So the respective team members always got the same grade, no matter who did what, no matter who was grinding and who was slacking all the time. Now, all of a sudden, he wants to improve the performance of one particular student, one of those who, as he suspected, had been lazy all the time. So he assigns another team project, but this time he instructs the more eager students to take a back seat and let the lazy one do all the work for a change. Do you think this will work? In most cases, I'd highly doubt it. But again, that's exactly what bodybuilders try to do all the time. Tamper with the automatic movement patterns, sometimes even with those that have been established for years. Like performing a compound exercise but shift the focus away from all the other muscles onto one specific one which they think is lagging behind in its development. Whether or not this endeavor has a chance of success almost entirely depends on the exercise in question. It is definitely doomed if you don't provide the lagging muscle with a mechanical advantage. In a vertical pull-down, for example, you will feel a nice peak contraction in your brachialis, brachioradialis, and, depending on the grip, perhaps also in your biceps, but almost never in your lats. No matter how much you concentrate on the latter, they will always have a mechanical disadvantage you can't overcome with your mind. In a T-bar row or some sophisticated machine with adaptive load on a lever, you will have a much better chance of feeling your lats contract. But still, you can actually feel your lats in a vertical pull-down as well. You just have to concentrate on the stretch position and the upper third of the movement, where your lats are at an advantage mechanically. Lengthened partials are all the rage right now anyway. But this is an exercise in which they really shine. So feeling a good pre-stretch can be as much an expression of a functioning mind-muscle connection as feeling a hard peak contraction. What both the stretch at the start and the contraction at the end of the movement have in common is that they can potentially be painful. In between, where the muscle is in its comfort zone, so to speak, it's totally fine if you don't feel it. Which brings me to the reason why I like to compare our skeletal muscles to teenage kids, like I did above. Firstly, you have to trust them to do their job on their own, unless you have an indication of the opposite. As long as your kids' grades are okay, you don't have to hover over them and tutor them. And as long as a muscle is growing at the same rate as all the others, you don't have to isolate it or put extra focus on it otherwise. Secondly, you don't have to worry just because you don't see or hear much of them most of the time. Some teenagers just like to hole up in their den. Yet if you have established a good connection, they still will come to you with their problems. Likewise, your muscles will communicate with you only when they perceive a chance of something going wrong. Potentially a stretch could lead to a pull or even a tear, and I guess a hard contraction reminds your muscles of the possibility of a spasm. And thirdly, if need be, you should tutor them one-on-one. For a muscle, that is what we call isolation exercise. Sometimes it can also be beneficial to just assign your lagging muscle to a different team, so to speak. Maybe your lats will do a better job if they have to cooperate with your abs, your lower pecs and your triceps for a change. To this end you can perform a stiff-armed pull-down, a front lever raise, or use a pullover machine. I do have some more ideas and suggestions about the mind-muscle connection, but I think they are better covered in an extra video. For now, I would rather like to read your thoughts about it, because it is always very inspirational for me to read your intelligent comments. So please spam me with them. I promise I will react to each of your comments. Thanks a lot in advance. If you think this video is worth watching, then please show it around. Share it with everyone you think has a lagging muscle or body part. A thumbs up and a subscription with turned on notifications would be nice too, of course. And in case you are taking protein supplements, maybe you want to try one that's also good for the environment. Save 15% by using my affiliate link in the description below and the code CREATIVE. Thank you for watching. My name is Florian, and I will keep thinking outside the box so that you won't get frustrated with your training.